I ran into this trouble at the age of 20 and now I'm 30. So I want to leave my trauma in my 20s. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. I am going to talk about something today that isn't necessarily my proudest moment in my life, but I do feel like because it is, the tail end of Domestic Maltreatment Awareness Month, I wanted to share my story. My story of my experience with it comes with a lot of shame. It is a part of who I am that I have really only shared once, and I'm 30 now, so it's 8 years later. I feel as though I have not necessarily outgrown it, but outlived it. So I just wanted to touch on that so that people who are going through it now know that it's not their fault, as well as people who are putting people through it know that I see you and you suck. I was 20 when I met my ex, and the person that I am today, people wouldn't assume that I would have been a prime target, but I was actually the perfect target, and here's why. I had a semi-rough upbringing in terms of money. I did grow up at a point in my life impoverished. We were a family of 6, and we at the time had just experienced the divorce of my parents as well as homelessness. So I was going to school and in the back of my mind knowing that come Christmas break or fall break, I might not have a place to go to. I was stressed. And on top of that, you're in college, you're trying to get good grades, you're trying to afford the freaking place. I also had a strong need of parental independence. So I didn't want to have to answer to my parents. I had just come off of a summer break of working at Six Flags and living in Waukegan with a friend over the summer. And it was one of the best summers ever. But I just wanted that freedom. I wanted to be able to make my own money so that I didn't have to worry about being homeless. And I was just young and naive. 20 years old, pretty smart. I was majoring in biology, so I thought, no one can really get one over on me. But life experience obviously taught me otherwise. And then on top of that, I was a pick-me. I wanted to please a man so that I could have a man. Maybe if I do everything that this man says, then he won't leave me like my dad left my mom, And now I know, obviously, that you can't really stop someone from leaving you, obviously. And also, if someone does leave you, let them. That's how I feel now, but I had to go through literal abuse to learn that. So here we are. I went through a relationship that was, at first glance, really exciting and fresh and new and young. This person was 4 years older than me. I was starry-eyed and excited because I was like, wow, I actually met someone who likes me. Looking back, I definitely forced that relationship to be a thing. I could have let it fizzle, but I was like, he's cool, someone to hang out with. Basically what happened was a few things. Cheating, alienation, being ostracized, being isolated, and then the physicality of it all as well, which wasn't the majority of our relationship. He was Christian, so he only respects marriage. Dating isn't a thing. There's no such thing as consent in a relationship, that kind of guy. And the relationship lasted about 2 years. So I was just completely head in the clouds, just doing my own thing, trying to get through school. Yeah, I found out about cheating through Snapchat because, it was still being used back then. And I was mad until I wasn't, because I wasn't giving him what he wanted anyway, physically. So I was like, you can do that with them. And I stayed like an idiot. My family all lived in, southern and central Illinois, and I was in Chicago, so naturally I was separate from them. Even with my friends, he never really wanted to hang out in groups, and what we did, he was like making them uncomfortable to the point where I would get some of that heat because I brought him around because he was an effing leech. So I just stopped bringing him around my friends. And then eventually I stopped going around my friends because I was like, I could just hang out with him. I hang out with him every day. It's what I know. There was the crazy making, doing things, and then when you would confront, it would be talking in circles and around and again and again, and then a fight, and then the next day, you know, oh, that wasn't even that big a deal. Like, it's stupid that we're mad at each other. We should just forget about it. How convenient, but I would, because I just didn't want to fight. I am very grateful that I left when I did, because destroying property is a good segue into physical violence towards your person, and that is completely true. I remember I went home from college for winter break, and my parents had split and my mom had got a new place, so I went there. And I remember seeing my mom and being like, I'm about to be 230 pounds lighter when you see me next. And I feel like when we broke up, I wasn't taken seriously because we had so many arguments where it's like, you know, I'm just gonna leave. I don't wanna deal with this. And I was just sick of it. I was tired. So when I did say this, you know, we continued to cohabitate up until about, I believe, October or so of 2016. I remember what really was a defining moment. We weren't together at this point. I had just helped him move into a new apartment and, you know, worked extra hard, super sweaty, U-hauling back and forth all day in the Chicago heat. I was exhausted. And I was like, can I stay the night? Can I take a shower? And he said no. And he knew that I had to go to my first day of work that next day. And I remember it just being like the worst feeling, because it's like, you had me help you all day move, and then I can't even like take a shower. I didn't have anywhere to live. And he ended up letting me stay and take a shower at that point. And then there was no issue after that because I had gone to work, and now there was nothing for him to take from me. So I was living with him, you know, saving up so that I could get my own place. And there was a moment actually before I got my first job where I needed to stay with him while I did my internship, and he said yes. And I was on my way to Chicago via Amtrak. And when I got to Chicago, he was like, never mind, you can't stay. So I slept in a park where the Field Museum is, off of Roosevelt, because I felt safest there because that's where my internship was, the Field Museum. It's like, am I gonna get arrested? Am I gonna get kidnapped, like beat up, shot, you know, all that. But that didn't happen before my first job. Before my first job out of college, he let me take a shower, he let me stay the night. And I ended up living with him for another 2 months while I saved up to get a new place so that I could leave, physically leave. And you know, we were just sort of existing as roommates. He said he wanted me to do some cooking and cleaning since I was living there without paying, which honestly is fair, but I didn't do it. And I met my now husband at my first job, and we got to know each other, and we were hanging out, and it was fun, and you know, we would go on dates and stuff, and it was just such a weird dynamic living with an ex while getting to know your husband or your friend at the time. And I remember eventually he was just like, let's just move in together. Like, I know it's crazy, you've only known me for 2 months, but let's just move in together. And so I was like, oh, I don't know, like I want to save up and get my own place, you know, independent, stuff like that. I gotta be independent. I already made a mistake with the first guy. I don't really know this one. So I went home, and I was getting the silent treatment. You know, he didn't want to talk to me. It was fine. He was playing his video game. And the next day when we woke up, we were arguing again. And the last thing he said to me, I remember, was whatever. And then he like slammed the door and he went to work. And I was like, perfect. I called up my husband now, but friend at the time. And I was like, you got room for me? Cause I'm coming. And he was like, yep. Packed up all my stuff, put it all in a duffel bag, and I was late to work. I got in trouble for being late to work, but I didn't get fired, which is all that matters. And I dragged my stuff all the way on the brown line, took it all the way to my first job. And then my husband carried my stuff all the way to his place. And ever since then, we have been living together, and we've been together ever since then. And why am I telling this story? Outside of it being National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I just want to get it off my chest. And that's why I brought it up now, because I'm 30 and I am looking to start a family soon. And I am moving up in my career, and so much has changed. And I just really need to let go of all of that. And what really changed that made me leave was that I just realized that you don't necessarily need to be in a relationship to be happy. And I think part of me was just very afraid of being alone. And I learned that, I think, growing up based off of things that I saw in my household, as well as just some dynamics that I had with my friends growing up too. I just did not like the idea of being alone, single, you know. I wanted to be revered, wanted, desired, you know, and it being by a guy is great. I realized as I got older, I don't need to put up with this. Like, there's so many people out there who will be okay with who I am, will be okay with me wanting to wait until marriage, or okay with me, you know, being ambitious in my education, or okay that I swear every once in a while, you know. There are people out there that aren't necessarily hypocritical, who are not violent, who share the same values basically as I do. And getting my first job, which he didn't want me to work, which makes sense because once I got my first job, I was out of there. But getting my first job opened my eyes to how many people are in this world, or even in Chicago, that I can get to know. There's so many people who like you for who you are, and it doesn't have to be romantic. You can cultivate relationships that are platonic, and they're just as powerful, if not more. And that's what I learned through my independence and through my abuse. So that's all I have. Thanks for listening.